Hello beautiful people, it's time to look at our tutorial so far on drawing noses. Now this is a good friend of mine, I've drawn him many times before, and we're going to utilize his face to do a little bit of learning on how to get a likeness in the nose. Now remember, you're not supposed to draw exactly what you see, you're supposed to utilize what you have in front of you to figure out what you can improve on. So let's go ahead and zoom in on his nose here really quick, and let's try to remember, I gave you the roadmap to the nose. What makes up this nose? Let's start with number one. This big part right here. Very large circle, unlike mine, which is a very small circle. Number two, that little line right above the bridge, right there, shows the depth of the nose. And then you can actually start right here, you can actually start playing a little bit of connect the dots, and you can connect up these lines here. Number three is the nostril. And so we got to look at the nostril here, and we can see it's an arc, but we can't really see inside. We can see a lot of shading, but not anything like we can see inside the head per se. And then the next one is the nostril itself. So you can draw in this nostril form. And a good way to know where the nostril stops is to see where the laugh line would connect with it. And that's very close to where the nostril would stop per se, unless you have somewhere where that nostril travels around. Then the next thing to do is look at the opposite side of the nose and see how much of the nose detail you can see. And the real important way to do that is to look for shading. If we look at the other picture here of him, you can see that there's a lot of shading right here along this part of his face. And you might even see the semblance of a nostril over here on this side. That's all important information to keep in mind. So now as you go on about this, you can see that we've detailed a bit, but we don't have enough information here. And so one of the things that we need to do is we need to find the other side of this nose, the other side of this bridge. Take a look at highlight and shadow. And we can see that there's a shape kind of right here that seems to define some kind of shadow area here. That just means that it's pushed away from the sun. It doesn't mean that it's not blinded by the sun, but there's a lot of shadow in this area here. And that kind of seems to help build up this whole nostril form. Once again, if you take a look carefully, you can actually see that the nostrils, no matter what, seem to follow a connection point that lead back to this main point here. There will always be a connection line somewhere along your nose here that connects the nostril back to that point. And that's going to help define, as you're drawing this face, that's going to help you define where you need to make these lines. Now some of these lines you don't need. Obviously this looks very awkward. So let me go ahead and show you what it might look like instead if I was drawing it. Once again, I am going to draw over top, and this is tracing, this is not art. So if you are a tracer, learn to draw because it's a really important technique. There are a lot of people who trace. There are very few people who are excellent artists. Well, there are many people who are excellent artists, but very few who can do it truly well. And you need to be one of those people who are really putting the best effort out there. And tracers, unfortunately, aren't really serving that purpose. So if I'm drawing this really quick, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use this form to exaggerate this form as best I can, okay? And I'm going to make this, and then I notice the bottom of his nostril, if we look over here, seems fairly sharp. So we can kind of push it over here too and sharpen it up. And now we don't see this nostril really disappear around this corner, but I do want to define that arch. And once we have that defined, sometimes what I'll do is I'll draw a circle here to tell myself where my highlight is going to be and where my shadow is going to be. And then maybe I'll even draw in, depending on what I'm seeing or not seeing, I may even go ahead and just draw in the second nostril on the side there, depending on where I'm planning on putting my laugh lines. If I can see it, I'll go ahead and do it. And you can tell that mine looks a lot closer to it than our initial sketch. But because of this initial sketch and seeing where all these different parts and pieces are, I know how to define the nose and get that structuring. It looks like him. It looks like his nose, so we have a great start going on. Next up, we're going to be looking even more into this, so keep sitting tight with me. My name is Tim Lee Michael. Thank you so much for hanging out on my channel and our Draw Too Much sketch lessons. Long way to go and a lot more to learn, but it's still going to be fun. Go practice on your friends, go practice on your family, find pictures and maybe some old family photos, and have a good time drawing people's noses, because the more you learn this, the easier it'll be to get a likeness. Make sure you check out my Patreon page and support me on there if you want to donate $1 or $2. That would be super helpful, and we'll have some more videos coming out for you very soon. See you later.